When I was 17 years old, I had a dream, a vision, to reunite with my father after 11 years in Orlando, Florida, and to play for the #1 team in the nation, Division II tennis. And I was just a kid from New Jersey, 17 years old. And all my friends who were going to college, who were about to go next year, they were going to Northeastern schools. They were going to Ivy League schools. And I was going to go to a little school in Orlando, Florida called Rollins College. And I remember the year before I went, I remember calling to get an interview with the tennis coach there to play with him for 15 minutes. That's all I wanted, was 15 minutes to have my opportunity to try out for the #1 team in the nation. And I was so excited, I couldn't wait. Because I was going to have my shot. And I remember vividly, 2 weeks before, being so excited, I had butterflies in my stomach. And those 2 months before, I practiced every single day. And I envisioned every single day those 15 minutes that could change my life forever. And I remember getting off the plane and being so excited to go see my dad. Because it'd been a long time. And I got there to those tennis courts at Rollins College, and I walked up there with my dad, and there was the tennis coach, and I got on that court. And I had 15 minutes to pour my heart out, to give my sweat, my blood, my guts, 15 minutes to change my destiny. And I remember getting out there, and I was so scared. So scared. But I went out there for 15 minutes, forehand, backhand, forehand, backhand, for 15 minutes, nervous every second of the way. For 15 minutes, I gave it my all. And when I got off that court, I remember walking up to the coach. The coach was over here, my dad was here, and I walked up to the coach so excited to ask him how I'd done. And I said, Coach, how'd I do? What number do you think I'd play on this team? And he looked at me. He said, you'd play about number 19, Teddy. And I said, Coach, how many players do you take? He says, we take 10 players, all scholarship players. You're not good enough to make this team, son. I wouldn't bother come trying out here next year. I remember looking over at my dad, who was speechless. What's a dad to say? I had my head down and I walked a few steps. As I began to walk out with my dad, I looked at my dad and I said, we'll just see about that. I said, I'm coming to play here next year. And I had heard those words before. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not old enough. In fact, I remember a time just like that. I was 9 years old, and I was at Camp DeWitt. It was an all-boys camp, and there was a girls' camp across the lake. And I was there with my 10-year-old brothers, and they were so excited because right around the corner, there was a dance coming up with the 10-year-old girls. And I wanted to go to the dance. And my brothers, a week before, they were playing with their hair, getting all smoothed up. And I wanted to go too. And I remember walking up to my brother saying, I want to go to the dance with you guys. And they looked at me and they said, but Ted, it's only for the 10-year-olds and up. And I walked away. And I remember walking up to my camp counselor and saying, Sir, I want to go to the dance with the 10-year-old girls. And he looked at me And he said, "But you look like you're 6. How old are you?" And I said, "I'm 9 years old. Why can't I go?" He says, "It's only for the 10-year-olds. And so I marched my way up there, and the next day I went to the camp director's office, and I said, "Sir, Mr. Boyer, my brothers are going to the 10-year-old dance. I want to go too." And he says, "Ted, it's only for the 10-year-old kids and up. You can't go." And I sat there and I plead my case for 10 straight minutes, telling him I want to dance with the girls. And after 10 minutes, I convinced him to let the 9-year-olds and the junior Bs in my camp to go to the dance with the 10-year-old girls. And I was so excited. I couldn't wait. And I was nervous, just like those butterflies that I always got. And I remember the day before, practicing my hair in the mirror, getting ready to go see the 10-year-old girls. And I remember that day walking right into the dance. And I walked in, and those girls were big. I was about 4'7", and they were like 10 years old. They were 5'7". They were big as trees. And they were sprouted like trees too. And I remember walking up to one girl as the dance started, because all I wanted to do was have one dance. And I walked up to her, and I remember saying, "Excuse me, would you like to dance with me?" And I danced with her all night long, and I was so happy. It was an amazing night. You're not good enough. You're not old enough. Because I remember another time, 2 years later, just like that. 3 years later, I was 12 years old. And I had worked all year to get those grades. You know, those good grades that you want to get in school, those A's. And when I was in the first grade, I scored the bottom 3% in the nation on the CTBS tests. But I worked so hard, and I remember walking into the principal's office with my guidance counselor and my mom right next to me. And we walked in, and I sat down, and I said to the principal, I said, "Sir," I said, "I want to be in honors classes. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough to be in honors classes. I want to be in the honors classes with the smart kids." And he looked at me, and he pulled out the test scores. And he looked at them. And he said, "Well, you just don't have the test scores to be in honors classes. I don't think you're smart enough to be in the honors classes this year, Ted." And I turned around and walked away with my mom. And I looked at her. And I said, "We'll just see about that. We'll just see about that." And sure enough, I danced with the 10-year-old girls, didn't I? That next year, I worked for 12 straight months, and I made that honor roll. And when I was 17 years old, after trying out with the coach, telling me not to come to that school next year, I practiced for 6 months straight. In fact, all summer long. I worked 3 jobs. In the morning, at 5 o'clock, I got up and I swung a sledgehammer. I knocked down buildings all day long from 5 in the morning to 1 o'clock. And then after that, I went and played tennis. And then after that, I worked at the gym. And then after that, I trained some more. Because I was going to play and try out for the #1 team in the nation, Division II. And I showed up next year, come fall semester. And I walked up to that tennis court. And I remember walking up, and the first person I saw was my coach, and he looked so surprised. He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm coming to try out." And he said, "Well, you can get over here with the rest of the walk-ons because you're not playing with the scholarship players. If you want to try out for this team and even have a chance of making this team, which you probably don't, you have to beat all those walk-on players right there." And one after the other, I looked at them, I sized them up, And I played the first one, and I took him down. And I played the second one, and I took him down too. And then it was the final walk-on player. It was me and this guy, and his name was Kit. And it reminded me of that show, Knight Rider. You know that show? You know that crazy red thing that goes on that silly-looking car. And I was playing Kit. And it was Kit on the other side of the court and me right here. And I knew that it was mono against mono. I knew that I was going to tune in to his heartbeat because there was two things that were going to happen on that court. Either I was going to die or I was going to leave victorious. And I remember tuning in, playing that match with him. So excited to have the opportunity because this was my destiny. This was my opportunity. And I tuned into his heartbeat just like the laser on that car. And I could smell it. Every second, I knew that he had better strokes than me, he had better skills than me, but nobody had a bigger heart than me. And we played for 3 hours straight. Forehand, backhand, forehand, backhand, till it came down to the final point, me against Kit, and I could smell him. I could tell that he was getting tired, and I could sense his heartbeat. It was slowing down. I could hear it. And it was my time right there to live my destiny and take him down. And I remember the last and final point, 17 balls, back and forth. And I chased that yellow thing all over the court, back and forth. And on the final point, the overhead slam came up, and boom! I win the match, and I am the king of the walk-ons. And my coach, well, he wasn't my coach yet, but he walked up to me. And I remember my coach looking at me and saying, I can't believe you beat that guy. He's got better strokes than you. He's got more skill than you. He's got more talent than you. He's got more experience than you. There's no logical reason why I should take you on this team, Teddy. And in fact, you're not fully on the team yet. You're on the team under one condition. I said, what's that, coach? Every day, after practice, you meet me here. And this hopper of balls is right here, and you're right here. We practice for 3 hours on this team, son. You practice for 5. And because your strokes are so damn bad, I got to teach you to play the game all over again. And when you come in here, you play from your knees. And you stay in this position, and you hit balls for 2 hours, and you practice on your serve every single day for the next 6 months. If you can commit to that, you can play on this team. And I said, okay, coach, I'll do it. I'll be here. And sure enough, every single day, out to practice, on my knees, hopper of balls, and me, and the court. And freshman year started, and I was so excited, and I knew I wasn't going to start, but I was so excited to come out to the court because in the fall season, they had tournaments. And the tournaments, we played as individuals, not as a team, because the real season started in the spring. So I actually got to play some matches in the fall. And I was so excited. And I remember the first match we went to. I didn't know any of the scholarship players because there were the scholarship players and me, the walk-on. And we took this van to the first match we were going to play down by Disney World. And it was so exciting. And I remember driving in the van with these guys, and these were great athletes. Some of these guys were pros who played in the pros, blew out their shoulder, weren't good enough to make it, and they came back to play. And I thought, these guys are professional athletes. And all of a sudden, on the way to the match, we pull into a McDonald's. And I hate McDonald's. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, well, I'm not going to eat McDonald's. So I had my banana and my Gatorade, and I ate my banana, and I drank my Gatorade for a 3-hour match that I was about to play. And I got out there on that court, and I played for 3 hours long. And this match went into a tiebreaker. And if you've ever played in the Florida heat, it was 120 degrees. I mean, my shoes were waterlogged. And finally, it came down to the final point that I was playing, and I remember it so vividly because as I started to go into the final point, my calves started cramping. And then my racket that I was holding, my thumb, it wouldn't move. It just got stuck to the racket, and I had to play swinging the ball like this, swinging the racket like this. And sure enough, in the third set tiebreaker, after giving it my all, huffing and puffing, I lost the match. And I was so exhausted because I could feel my body start to cramp. And I got in that van with the rest of my team, and we went in the van into the cool air conditioning to cool off, and we drove, and guess where we went? We went to McDonald's again. But I didn't have the strength enough to argue. I just shut my mouth because I was the only one on the team who lost. So we pulled into that McDonald's parking lot, and I'm sitting down, and I'm in the van. And I remember just thinking to myself, okay, just move slowly because you ever get in a Charlie horse? It doesn't feel good. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, okay, get out of the van now, just slowly. And I stepped out of that van, and all of a sudden, oops, my quad, it's cramping. And I grabbed my leg and I pulled it up and I'm stretching out my quad and I'm screaming and my teammates are wondering what's going on. And so now my quad's cramping, then my hamstring goes and I gotta lower this, and then my left leg goes and boom, I'm down to the floor. And now I'm screaming for my life because every part of my body is cramping. My quads, my hamstrings, my abdominal muscles. And the guys are trying to make me laugh because I'm in so much pain, and I'm laughing, and my abdominal muscles are cramping. And so this one guy, Pat went into McDonald's and he got this whole thing of orange juice. And he came out with this sugar water because you're supposed to give people sugar water, and they have lots of sugar water in McDonald's, don't they? So he comes out with this sugar water, and here I am, laying on the floor screaming, and all these people are walking by looking at me. And so I lay down, and as I'm there, he brings over this orange juice, and I'm sipping the orange juice, my neck's up, I'm spilling it all over myself, and now my neck's cramping, and I can't move. So he runs back into McDonald's, and he comes out with one of those twisty straws. And he brings it over to me, and now I have a twisty straw in my mouth, and I'm slurping up the juice. And they pick me up after 20 minutes of screaming and yelling, and they pick me up, and we go over to the van, and they put me in the van, and now I'm on the van, I'm on my way back, and they bring me to this fraternity house, and I don't even know who these guys are. I've only practiced with them for a little bit. So they bring me into the fraternity house, they put me down on the couch, and they look at me and they say, we got to cool you off. Somebody's got to get you in the shower. And here I am, sitting down on the couch like this, not wanting to move. And one of the guys looks at the other guy and he says, I'm not touching those shoes. Somebody's got to get those. And so somebody brave enough, one of the guys came over and he took my shoes off and he took my socks off, and they weighed like 20 pounds. They were waterlogged. And so then it was time to put me in the shower, and all I'm thinking is, when you get dehydrated, your body kind of prunes up, And I'm looking down, I don't know these guys, I have my shorts on still, and they're lifting me up, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if they're going to take my pants off because it doesn't look so good down there right now. And so sure enough, they take my pants off and they throw me in the shower, and now I'm in the shower cooling off. And 4 hours later, after Gatorade after Gatorade after Gatorade, I'm revived. And sure enough now, freshman year passes and sophomore year comes. And now, I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to start again or play for the team, but it's the fall season again, so I get to play in the tournaments. So guess what happens? The first match again. we go to play in the tournament. And as I'm playing in this tournament, I'm so excited. I mean, it's a match where I can give it all, and maybe, just maybe, I have an opportunity to start for the team. And sure enough, I go and I play the match, and we go 3 sets again. And what happens again? I lose in the 3rd set, and this time I start cramping again. And now we're on our home court playing the tournament, and the security guards are now coming in the little golf cart, coming over to pick me up off the court, put me in the cart, and now they're wheeling me back to my fraternity house because it's my sophomore year. And so now they bring me back to the fraternity house, and all I'm thinking is, breathe, breathe, breathe. Keep the temperature even, breathe. And so now I walk myself into the fraternity house really slowly, just like this, because I don't want to move my muscles. And now I get into the shower. And as I'm in the shower, I'm trying to keep the water temperature just right. And I get in the shower, and the water temperature is just right. And then I remember, as I turn the shower off, and I step back in, outside, into the bathroom, onto the tile floor, I get that feeling again. And here I am again. Boom! My right leg goes. Boom! My left legs go. And now I'm down on my knees. And I'm cramping again. And all I can think now is, holy shit, I'm naked again. So I crawl. I literally crawl all the way over. And there's 200 of my fraternity brothers out there partying. And they're partying with their friends and all the girls. And I'm here in my room. And all I'm thinking of, Ted, just get a pair of boxer shorts. So I crawl over and I grab those boxer shorts and I put them on. And once I get the shorts on, I start screaming to my friends, help! Help! And a couple of my friends, they come rushing over. And now here I am down on the floor like this, looking up, reaching up for my friends, saying, call the ambulance, call the ambulance. And now the paramedics come, woo, woo, woo. The school's running over. There's now 400 people in our courtyard. Everybody's watching what's going on. And I'm sitting here on the floor in my boxer shorts. And the paramedics come and they look at me and they bring the IVs and they stick the IVs in me. And then they put me right on the cart. And I'm laying there on the little cot that they have back here. And all I remember laying down is I'm in my boxer shorts and I'm looking up and there's all these girls. And they're looking at me. And I don't know these girls, but they're saying, it's going to be okay, Ted. It's going to be okay. And sadly enough, the thought that's going through my head is, I'm really dehydrated right now. I bet my muscles look really good. And sure enough, everybody came to the hospital with me, like 40 people follow. And I get to the hospital, and the doctor comes over after I have the hydration, and he looks at me and he says, that was a really close call. You need to do something to fix this. You need to hydrate more. Now, sure enough, I hydrated the rest of the season. And that was my sophomore year, and the spring came around, and guess what? Right as the spring came around, 2 players on the scholarship team, 2 of them, 2 players got injured within the same week. And guess who got the call? You got it. I got the call. And I played 20 matches my sophomore year, and guess what? I lost 18 out of 20 matches. Totally depreciated. My confidence was shot. I was embarrassed to get on the court. 18 out of 20 matches. And sure enough, my junior year, I come back the next year wondering, am I going to start? And I beat out some of the other players to start my junior year. But this year, my junior year, as I start the match and I start the season, I lose 8 of my first 9 matches. 8 of them. And now I've lost almost 30 matches in the last 2 years. 30. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if I can go on. And sure enough, right before the big match that we were about to play, where we're playing a Division I school called American University. Sure enough, I go 3 sets again, and this time I don't cramp, but I become water toxins. And now I sweat out all my potassium, all my chloride, all my sodium, and they take me to the hospital again. And this time the doctor says, you're 1/10 of a point away from dying. Something needs to change. And they gave me advice, and they gave me salt pills, and they gave me all this stuff. And I took it right before the next match that I was about to play for the number 1 team, Division I. And I was excited because we were going up against a better team. And maybe I just play better against somebody who was way better than me. So my coach decides to put me in the lineup this time. But instead of playing the number 6 position, he puts me in at number 4. And I looked at him and I said, Coach, why am I playing number 4? He says, oh, Ted, we're sacrificing you today. We're going to put you in at number 4 so we can win at the bottom positions. And I remember thinking to myself, we'll just see about that. And here I am, scared to death to get back on the court, thinking I may die. But getting back on the court anyway, having 2 hours of sleep the night before because I was doing an economics paper, and I show up to that match against the Rookie of the Year for American University. And I'm playing him, and in the first set, he creams me 6-1. And then in the second set, I'm down 3-1, and I'm thinking, oh shit, it's happening again. 31 losses. And then all of a sudden, he walks over to my teammates, and he looks right at them at the fence. And he looks at his teammates, and he says, guys, I'll be done with this guy in a few minutes. And I remember hearing that. And I walk back. I'm getting off this court. One of two ways. Either I'm dying, or I'm going victorious. And I went for that second set. All my heart, all my sweat, everything that I had for an hour in that second set. And at the end of that second set, I took that second set from him. And now the third set is approaching. We're 3 hours into the match because I'm not real good at tennis. I just wear people down. So all the other courts are off. And now I'm wearing this guy down, and everybody's off the courts, and the girls are watching, and the guys are watching, and everybody been done like an hour ago. And here I am, and it's tied up 3-3. 3 points to American, 3 points to Rollins College. And the whole school is there watching. So many people in the audience. And now we're down to the third set. And we're going back and forth, and each point, I said to myself, I'm going to wear this guy down. And all I kept thinking in my head again was that red laser, his heartbeat. Woo, 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 woo. And I tuned in. Forehand, backhand, forehand, backhand, all day long. An hour and a half in that third set. It came down to the tiebreaker, and we were tied up 7-7. And when we were tied up 7-7, in that point, he was so frustrated after chasing down 400 balls in the last hour and a half, he started screaming and throwing his racket and saying, I can't believe I'm losing to this guy. He sucks. And I sat there and said, come on! Bring it on! And everybody was looking at me like, this guy's crazy. And I went up 8-7 in that breaker. And in a tiebreaker, you got to win by 2 points. So it came down to the final point. And the final point went even longer. It was like 40 balls. And I'm doing everything I can because I'm feeling about to start cramp out. And I'm lobbing the ball. And I'm running back to the baseline. And I'm running cross court, side court, baseline, volley. And the final shot comes up. And it's over my head. And I jump up. And boom! Overhead winner. And we win the match. And we win 4-3. My confidence was shattered up into that point. And after that victory, I went on to win 9 out of the next 10 matches. It's part of why we're here this weekend, mindset, right? 30 matches in 2 years, lost. And one moment changes everything. And so after I finished my tennis season, at Rollins and finished my 4 years there, I had that dream of reuniting with my father. I had been with him for 4 years, me and my dad. And I wanted to go into the family business and work with my dad and my brother, who was at school with me. And sure enough, right as I graduate, I remember my dad calling me up to tell me, doesn't look like we're going to be working together right now. I just went bankrupt, and you're going to have to go find a job. I have no money. So as a college kid, I knew that there was no way I was going back to waiting tables. There was no way I was going back to swinging demolition. And so I moved in with 4 friends, one of them my brother, who continued to wait tables till he finished. And I moved in and I took a spot right in the corner of the house, which wasn't a bedroom. And I put a mattress down. And for the next 4 or 5 months, I interviewed and interviewed and interviewed until finally I got the call. And I was so excited to get a call because I hadn't had many interviews. And I picked up the phone, and there was another guy on the end of the phone who you just met, Mo. His name was Mo Abdu. And I picked up the phone and I said, hello? And I didn't hear a word he said because all I could hear was, would you like to come in for an interview? And I said, sure. New York Life? And I was so excited because I thought New York Life was a magazine. And I like to write. So I walked in. And I showed up to the top floor. And I walked into that interview. When I got off the elevators, I looked and it said New York Life Insurance. And I said, that's not a magazine. But I said, you know what? I don't have any other interviews, so let me just go into this interview. And I walked into the interview and I sat down, and the first question that he asked me was, who is Ted McGrath? And for 4 hours, I got to share who I was. It was the last time we all had an opportunity to do that. For 4 hours. And he hired me on, and he brought me in. And my success was created through the vision of another person. Because I couldn't see beyond that. And sure enough, the first year with New York Life, he looked at me and he said, the only way I'm going to hire you, the only way, because you failed all the tests and you're 21 years old and you look like you're 12, he said, the only way I'm going to hire you is you come in here and you do $200,000 in commissions your first year. And if you can commit to that, then we can play. And so I was dumb enough to believe him. So I came in there not knowing anything about business, not having any idea that I wanted to be an entrepreneur or be in sales. I was clueless. But I put my head down and I said, just like I follow that little yellow ball, I'm going to follow what he says. And step by step, day by day, I worked my ass off. And for the first 12 months, I came really, really close to $200,000. I was the number 4 producer out of 120 producers in that office. And then after that, about 6 months later, they said, well, this guy looks really good. He's doing really well. Let's promote him into management. And I had no idea how to manage people. In fact, I knew nothing about people. I was chasing a yellow ball around the court most of my life. It was an individual sport. So I worked, and I worked, and I worked, and I worked, and I got promoted and promoted and promoted and promoted until one day, a defining moment. That defining moment. June 30th, 2005. I'm standing on the top floor of the SunTrust building in downtown Orlando, Florida. And I'm looking out over the horizon, And 90 days prior to that moment, 90 days prior, my partner Mo and I had set out to do the impossible. We had set out to accomplish something that nobody else in the company was able to accomplish in those next 90 days. And we put our goals together, and we put our plan together, and we went right to the headquarters and we said, this is what we're going to do over the next 90 days. And they looked at us and said, that's totally unrealistic. There's no way we're taking this to the CEO. Give us something we can take to the bank. And I remember thinking to myself again, well, we'll just see about that. And looking at my partner, and we said, come hell or high water, we will meet those goals. And for 90 days, it was the most electric organization in the world. 120 people every morning waking up, visualizing to music, connecting with each other, painting their vision, painting their goals, sharing their hearts. Everybody was tuned in and dialed in for those next 90 days. And sure enough, 90 days later, June 30th, 2005, I'm standing there on the top floor, and we had accomplished our goals. The company in our office, the Orlando General office, had met its goals. And I was now the number 5 partner out of 500 partners for the number 1 life insurance company in the country. And this was the moment. 7.5 years. 7.5 years I spent to work towards that moment. Thinking one day when I get there, I'll actually feel good. And I got there. And part of me was excited. Because July 4th was around the corner, and I figured, you know what? Let's celebrate. Let's have a good time. And part of me wanted to celebrate, but then there was another part of me. Another part of me that I was ignoring. Another part of me that never felt good enough. Another part of me that never felt successful. And the more I ignored this, the louder it got. And I said, Ted, just focus on what you've accomplished. Enjoy the moment. And I tried so hard to just focus on what I'd done. But the more I focus here, the louder this got. And I remember the feeling, it was kind of like lava in the base of a volcano. Because my body got real hot. And it was so hot. And the more I pushed it down, and said, just focus on the good. The louder it got, until in a moment I felt this burning in my heart. It was burning so much in my heart. And I couldn't turn away. And as I tuned into what I was feeling, I could feel this rush of lava and emotion moving up through my neck, through my face. And this burst of emotions came shooting out. And all of a sudden, after that, there was peace. And I heard this voice. And the voice said, is this all there is? And in that moment, I had a decision to make. A choice. My coach used to tell me, Ted, decision comes from the word decide. Decide means to kill off. And someday, you're going to have to kill off all other possibilities except living that passion. Someday, you're going to have to choose the path that's right for you. And sure enough, I'm standing on the top floor, looking out over the horizon with 2 paths in front of me. And all common sense said, follow this path. This is the path that you're already successful at. This is the path that's socially acceptable. This is the path that everybody else would think you're crazy if you don't follow it. Go follow the corporate path and perhaps be CEO one day. And then there was the other path, the path of destiny, the path of fate, the path of passion. Which path would I choose? Which path will you choose? And I stood there in that moment with so much fear, with the butterflies again, with wondering if I follow this path, can I really succeed? Am I good enough outside these 4 walls? Am I good enough out there as I kind of am in here? Or is this all a fluke? And sure enough, in that moment, I mustered all the courage, all the confidence, all the faith, because I never had faith up to that point, and I walked to the edge of that building. I walked to the edge of the floor, and I looked out over the horizon, and figuratively speaking, I mustered up all that courage, all that faith, and I stepped off and leaped off that building, and I said, I will grow wings on the way down. Now, literally speaking, I turned around and I walked into New York Life, and I said, here's my resignation letter. And I never returned again. Now, I share this because we all have defining moments, don't we? And when I left, I realized I am so excited to live my passion. It's the thing most in the world that I want to do. But before I could live my passion, guess what? I had to trade my problem. I had to trade my problem. Because the part that I didn't tell you, for 8.5 years or 7.5 years at New York Life, every weekend on Friday and Saturday, I would wake up and get ready for a night out. And my night outs weren't like other people's. I would have 15 drinks on a Friday night, 15 drinks on a Saturday night. Every weekend. And Monday morning, I would wake up and I'd go to the gym at 4:30 and sweat it out, and I thought it was normal. And when I left, I knew internally, if I started looking inside, I knew I had to look inside and say, you know what? If you can't solve this problem, you don't deserve to go out and live your passion. And I began to reflect on my life. And I looked back through my family. And I saw my grandmother, who died of a stroke at a young age, and she was an alcoholic. And I saw my aunt, at 49 years old, drank herself to death in her apartment. And then my mom, who was never a drinker, picked up alcohol and began to drink. And she became an alcoholic. And I remember one night getting a phone call, and it was my stepdad on the other end of the line, saying, your mom drank a lot tonight. She took a bunch of sleeping pills. We had to rush her to the hospital. Then I look back through my life. And I remember at 22 years old, I was out on a Saturday night, and it was just like every other night in terms of the alcohol. It was 15 drinks on a Saturday night. But there was one thing about this night that was different. Because on this night, I decided to do some drugs. And I was thinking to myself, you know, all I want to do is just feel good. I just want to feel love. So I took some ecstasy. And woo, I was feeling love, all right. And then, if that wasn't enough, because if it's never enough, it's never enough, it's never enough. So I decided that night, while we were at the club, partying up, getting all excited, I decided, whoa, it was time to go do some cocaine, and woo, I was high. And now I had taken all the alcohol and everything that I was feeling and pushed it down. And then I had taken all the ecstasy and pulled it up. And I had taken all the cocaine and I pushed it out. And now I was ready. I was feeling the way that I wanted to feel. Invincible, unstoppable, good enough. And I partied all night long. And I got back to my house at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I got out of the shower again and my legs got really heavy. And I remember just walking over to the kitchen. And the tile was really cold. as I stepped on the tile. And I fell down to my knee. And there was this cabinet, and I leaned up against it. And as I leaned up against the cabinet, my brother was coming over in the corner. And he came rushing over, wondering, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? This is my big brother. And I reached up for my big brother. All I could do was reach up, and I grabbed him right by his shirt. And I said, just stay with me. Just stay with me. And I had this feeling as I was holding on to him that I was leaving my body. And all I could do was hold on to the top of my head because I felt my soul leaving my body. And all I was doing was holding on, saying, Tucker, don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me. And I looked up and my brother says, I'm here. I'm here. And all that was going on through my mind was, I just want to hold on for one more moment. Just one more moment. And that night, for hours upon hours, felt like years of coming in, coming out, coming in, coming out. And I was too ashamed to go to the hospital. I was so embarrassed because I thought I was going to die. And I just held on, and finally, the morning came, and I was revived. And I stood up and realized from that day on that things needed to change. I had stopped doing drugs. But for 8 more years, I continued to drink alcohol. For 8 more years. And when I left New York Life, that was the problem that I needed to solve. I knew I had to trade my problem for a universal solution that could help thousands, hundreds, millions of people. And so I found a formula. I searched and I searched and I searched, and I found a scientific formula. A scientific formula that helped me change. That helped me transform what I was feeling. That helped me become more of who I was. And sure enough, today, because of that formula, I am a non-drinker. Thank you. I no longer drink, and I never will again. And what I realized is the true secret of why I'm here right now is I believe that the foundation for living your passion is to look at our problems, to look deep inside ourselves and to see what those problems are. And when you can trade that problem, which in the grand scheme of things is like a speck of dust compared to this magnificent universe, if you can trade that little problem, you can go serve so many people, starting with yourself. And to me, the gateway to living a passionate life and having passionate relationships and having a fulfilled life starts with who we are. Starts with solving our problems. It's not about the products outside ourselves. It's about what's inside ourselves. How many people hear me? Say yes.